Wanted to go over this week's assignments with you. So this week we are moving more into the pre-writing stages, and you'll be working on your first paper. So we'll be thinking about how to read critically and also how to respond to nonfiction readings in an academic way. So you have a number of different readings here for this week. You have a reading from Peter Elbow on free writing, and then you have a reading from Deborah Tannen on sex, lies, and conversation, which as your overview video from Dr. Veach mentions is not as risque as it sounds. It's just about gender differences in communication. So we're thinking more about how, where communication breaks down and why, whether it be because of gender or race or political differences or religious differences, etc. So we're exploring more about, those moments when communication doesn't quite work out, and, how we can improve from there. So you have that reading, and then you also have a reading from Writing Spaces on strategies for reading scholarly sources, and you should read all of section 3 on critical reading from your textbook in conversation, as well as chapter 13. And then there's a sample paper for you in the supplemental resources, which will be helpful for you to look at as a model for your first paper, which is due on Tuesday at the end of this week. So if you find models useful, feel free to take a look at that sample paper, or if you feel like that might sort of impede your creative process, or you might end up writing too much like that, then you don't have to look at it. It's really up to you whether you find models useful, as I do. So then looking at the assignments for this week, you have a pre-writing assignment, a free write. So after you read Peter Elbow's article on free writing, you'll want to implement this strategy for brainstorming for your first essay that's due Tuesday. So you're going to do just a free write where you just get everything out on paper. You're going to set a timer for 10 minutes. So if you have just like a little egg timer, you can use that. If you have like a watch with a timer, you can use that, or a timer on your phone, you can use that. So set a timer for 10 minutes and just get everything down on paper that you can possibly get down. So you want to respond to the questions after reading Deborah Tannen's article. What ideas does this article give you about the communication problem you wrote about for your pre-test essay last week? So does it shed more light on that communication problem? Does it tell you anything about what might be the causes of that problem or solutions? So just try to get everything down on paper that you can without judgment, without stopping. Just write anything, even if it's I don't have an idea right now. Don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about anything. This is just purely for getting ideas down on paper. So that free write is due Saturday night at 11:59 p.m. Also due Saturday is the initial post for your week 2 discussion forum, which continues to help you articulate a statement of your philosophy of writing as a Christian. So you'll want to reflect more on this week's scripture that's mentioned in the overview section, and you want to consider what it means to provide a witness for what God has done in your life. So think more about what that means, sharing about what God has done in our lives. You can discuss how people in your life, including yourself, have already done this. And if you haven't ever witnessed before, this is an opportunity for you to provide that witness in writing. So that initial post is 250 words minimum, and that's due Saturday, and then you still need to respond with minimum of 200-word responses to your peers by Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. And those responses, again, should add breadth and depth to the conversation, expanding upon what your peers are saying, asking questions, providing critical, and that doesn't mean like negative critical, just means like constructive feedback on their posts to get the full credit for the response posts. And then you have a week 2 reading quiz that is on the learning materials for this week, and that's due that's due Saturday at 11:59 p.m. as well. So those 3 things are due Saturday: the free writing exercise, the initial discussion forum post, and your reading quiz. And then the paper 1 on miscommunication is due Tuesday, as well as the 2 response posts. So for this first paper, you want to think about difficulty in communication. So it doesn't have to be about the problem in communication that you identified for your pretest. It can just be difficulty in communication, in general. You want to explore this topic more in your first paper. It does need a thesis statement or a statement of argument at the end of your introduction first paragraph, okay? This thesis statement should communicate to the reader what the reader should get out of your paper, the message that you want them to take away about difficulty in communication, okay? So remember, the topic for this paper is difficulty in communication. Your thesis statement should speak to that subject in some way and offer the reader some sort of takeaway or message on that topic. Okay, so that's one of the things that we'll be looking for in this paper, is creating a strong statement of argument for what you're doing in this paper with regard to that topic. Okay, so you should also incorporate 2 properly cited direct quotes from Deborah Tannen's piece in the Washington Post. Okay, so that means you need to directly quote her twice and cite those quotations using either APA or Chicago Turabian style, depending on what your major is. Okay, so in week 1, you should have identified, or asked for help from the instructor, from me, but what is my citation style? Is it APA or Chicago? So you need to cite your sources. Your paper should be properly formatted according to that style guideline. So if it's APA, you should have a cover page, etc. So you should look up the proper paper formatting in your textbook for your style guideline. It needs to be at least 900 words long, and it needs to be double spaced throughout. No extra spacing between paragraphs. If you have a title on the same page as your paragraphs, no extra spacing between like heading and title, just entirely double spaced throughout. And that assignment again is due Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. You should be meeting with me at some point during these first 2 weeks. So if you haven't already done that, please schedule a time with me. And that way, if you have questions about these assignments, you can work through those with me in person. And it just adds a little bit of a personal element. It helps me to get to know you better and answer your questions directly. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to learning more about you through your writing and communication.